Good
morning.
to see you.
Yeah, everybody.
Okay, and we're still waiting we're hoping anyway to hear from Ernest Hammer, who's in Ward 2. Otherwise, this is the time for Ward 4 candidates. And as Pam was just telling me, we don't expect Daniel Tidswell to be here. He didn't seem to be interested, so he didn't respond at all either. So, but we will hear from Andrew, and hopefully let's see, phone. Is that Ernie? Is that you, Ernie, on the phone?
Yes, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you well.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Ernie Hammer, well, I'm glad you could join us. Okay. Well, we got both candidates here. Let's get started. If it's all right with you, Andrew and Ernie, I'll just ask you a few questions and get a little background, and then let you go and tell whatever you want. And that's your opportunity. And we hope to have a lot of time for questions. So, Andrew, let's start with you.
Okay.
Andy or Andrew? What I how should
Well,
I address
e-
you?
either is fine, but maybe to be consistent with the campaign, we'll just go with Andrew.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Tell me, where were you born and raised?
Born in Missoula, raised in Billings, raised in Billings Heights, actually. So my father was a pastor here in town for many years at a little church that was just, let's see, north of Walmart. I don't know what kind of church it is today, but it used to be called Hawthorne Church. It's a little brick building. So yeah, raised in the Heights. Um, Went to school at Alkali Creek, Castle Rock. Started high school at Skyview, and by the time I hit high school, my father had moved to Nye, and so I moved up there and lived in Nye for high school and went to high school in Absaroka.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
And college? What is your college
came
background?
came back to Billings for college at MSUB, Eastern Montana College at that time. So it had not made the change to MSUB yet. And then after college, my professional career has been in technology. And so I moved out to Portland, Oregon as my career started, worked for uh, a technology consulting and training company in the Pacific Northwest. And I would teach classes in Portland and up in Seattle. I did work for Microsoft and Nike and Intel and lots of the big companies that are out there in that part of the world. And then in 2005, I moved back to Montana. Um, and I've been here ever since. Since I moved back in 2005, I've lived on the West End, not Ward 4 the entire time, but the West End.
All right. And then tell us a little bit more about, well, I guess you have really your background, your occupational background.
I can
So,
tell you a little bit more. Sure, yeah. So when I came back to Billings, my first job returning to Billings was with EBMS. Some of you will know that local company. It's been around for a long time, owned by the Larson family. I was the IT director for that company from 2005 to 2010. In 2010, a good friend of mine and I started our own business, a technology consulting firm called Altitude Technologies. And we ran that for 3 years. And then after 3 years, that company was acquired by Avitas Group. And Avitas Group, another long-standing billings company. I worked at Avitas Group from 2013 to current, basically. Avitas Group got acquired in 2020 by a company out of Phoenix. Lots of business acquisitions that have happened, but over that whole time with Avitas, I was the chief operating officer for a period of time. After the acquisition into the company from Phoenix, I kind of focused back on technology again, and I've been the chief information officer for the last 5 years for that company. And that company has grown quite large. We have 35,000 employees now. So
my,
yeah.
wow. Okay, well, that's great to hear the background. Why don't we just let you go ahead and tell us anything about anything you wish, but particularly we're interested in why you're running for the position on the city council and what you think you can do for them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity and good to see everybody that's here this morning. I was just barely able to get my coffee in hand before I sat down, so I'm glad that I did. uh, anyway, yeah, look, I've been interested in politics for a long time. And when I say interested in politics, just understanding how much it impacts all of us, and at times wondering why things happen in ways that don't seem to make sense. And so, that my interest has been more in local politics, closer to home, so to speak, city council, state legislature than it has been on the national side of things. My work has not really allowed me to even consider running for anything for a long, long time because I traveled a lot. The company I work for now has employees in 44 countries. So I traveled a lot. But in the last 6 to 9 months, that travel has dramatically slowed down. And I made a decision that I was actually going to be leaving corporate world, starting my own consulting firm here in the next couple of months. And that would give me the ability to really control my schedule. I didn't do that because of the potential to run for city council, but it was just kind of a bit, I guess, a bit of a byproduct. And when I did that, it was my wife who actually asked me if I would ever consider doing this. She knew I was passionate about it, knew that there was maybe a good opportunity to run in Ward 4. And, more specifically, I guess if you really get down to kind of why I'm running in Ward 4, why I thought that it mattered, because we have a council member there who's just finished his first 4 years. Um, but I'm not, I think that Ward 4 and the entire city of Billings deserves council members who are engaged, council members who show up to meetings, who actually engage in the conversation at the meetings, so we know what they're thinking and why they're voting certain ways. I didn't see that in our current council member. And if those of you, and probably many of you on this call, have watched council meetings, what you see is about 4 or 5 people who talk a lot. And, I mean, I think in some ways I think it's good, for all those people, even if I don't agree with them, at least I know where they stand. And so I think it's really important that, that Billings has council members that are going to represent them, and speak up about why they're doing certain things. And even just recently was a good example of, I saw a good example just a few weeks ago at a council meeting that was an example of a decision that I didn't understand and certainly didn't agree with, and that was our Safer Streets project. Right. So Billings got a large grant for our Safer Streets project, and in order to receive those funds, we had to invest a little bit, but it was, give or take. These aren't going to be exact numbers. Billings had to invest, let's say, between 600,000 and 700,000, and the return was $3.5 million in funds for the Safer Streets project. I mean, for anybody here in Billings, we know as we grow how important safe streets are. And the person that I'm running against and several other council members voted against issuing those funds, which doesn't make any sense to me, but without any explanation about why. So, look, I would say this. I certainly couldn't say that I'm going to make votes or make decisions that everybody on this call or everybody in Ward 4 will agree with, but I'll always say why I'm making those votes and be willing to listen to anyone who, wants to give me an opinion prior to the vote or even afterwards. I think it's just important to stay engaged. So that's that's who I am and why I'm running. And yeah, I would be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
You mentioned your wife. I think you ought to tell us a little bit about Clementine. She certainly has a status of her own here in Billings.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, even though I might have had a, high-powered corporate job, most of the time in Billings, I'm known as Clementine's husband, which is perfectly fine by me. She's been involved in, I mean, not just local politics, but local community issues for many, many, many years. She was raised in Helena. One of the things that I count as a maybe one of my biggest accomplishments as a lifelong Billings resident is to convince someone from Helena to move to Billings. I think that was a pretty big accomplishment. She's lived here now more than she has anywhere else in her life. And, neither one of us have any plans of leaving. We're still raising kids here, and we have a granddaughter that's 3 years old that's also being raised here. So we have many, many, many more years to come in Billings. But yeah, Clementine is she owns Limber Tree Yoga Studio and is involved with, good grief, I can't even count the number of projects and initiatives that she's been involved with, from school board elections to lots of mental health advocacy, suicide awareness, on and on and on it goes. So yeah, she's been a huge supporter and very important to the campaign for sure.
So, and one more last thing I wanted to ask you. Can you tell us a little bit about where Ward 4 really is? I mean, yeah, your
Yeah.
ward.
Well, it has changed a little bit recently. So currently, Ward 4, starting on the west side of Billings, it's the far northwest edge. So that includes Ironwood Subdivision, Copper Ridge, and then it kind of starts heading east underneath the Rim Rocks. And the ward basically goes, from the Rim Rocks down to about Polly, but that southern border kind of goes up and down a little bit as it moves east. And then the eastern border is approximately 13th Street West, give or take. Um, it also does include, it's not a large number of voters, but it does include the voters that live right on the top of the rims along that part of Billings. And it also includes Reberg Ranch, which some people don't realize is actually annexed into the city. But Reberg Ranch is also part of Ward 4. So it used to, prior to recently, it stretched all the way down to 27th Street. And so it was just basically under the rims that entire way. But that changed. I don't know exactly when, but within the last few years. So it's a highly engaged ward, extremely high voter turnout, and so it's been yeah, it's been interesting as I've talked with a lot of people across the ward just to kind of see where everybody sits. So yeah.
All right. Well, good. I have to tell you that one of your signs is in front of our front yard, so we appreciate.
Well, that's very good. Yeah, and I've been able to I've had good support with that. Yesterday, I placed a yard in, talked to a voter at the door, placed a sign in her yard right next to a Mike Boyette for mayor sign. But look, I've got my signs in yards with people who support Mike Boyette for mayor, Mike Nelson for mayor, Jennifer Owen for mayor. Like I I would say this, I do think that it's important and that these races are nonpartisan. I really do. I think there's been a push from some people to make city council partisan in recent years, and I just think that would be a huge mistake. Because you can look at a city council meeting and you can see maybe over the course of one meeting, several 7-4 votes. But you know what? You're going to have a different 7 and a different 4 in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but in many. And I think that's an important thing. I think if we turn it partisan, we'll just get 7-4, 7-4, 7-4. You won't even have to show up to the meeting and you'll know how the votes are going to go. So I think many issues on city council, shouldn't be partisan. I don't think they really are. And my intention is to certainly try to represent Ward 4, across the board, as much as I can.
Okay, let's go to Ernie now. Ernie, tell us, you're in Ward 2, I believe. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about where Ward 2 is.
Well, Ward 2 is what I would call most of the heights. There's a boundary there on Hilltop Road all the way through, but then it leans over and catches some of those uh, newer subdivisions down by let's see, trying to think, like Senoria and some of those. They're over to the east of Hilltop and Governors. Then it goes all the way down, and then there's a kind of a narrow patch that isn't Ward 2 off a bench, but a lot of bench and those kind of areas out there where my competition, Mr. Pittman, lives. All good route, all those streets out in that area.
Okay, well, let's start asking the questions. Where were you born and raised?
Well, my grandfather. I was born in Woods Cross, Utah. My grandfather had a trucking business, and when I was like 5 years old or so, maybe even 4, he bought a ranch over in Hamilton area, Montana. closest really city is Woodcross. It's right between Hamilton and Corvallis. So I did all my grade school in either Hamilton or Corvallis, 4 and 4, and then I graduated from Hamilton High School. Then I did get a scholarship. I went to college in Idaho for a year, and then I got home and decided that I could make more money than I was if I was going to be a teacher like originally planned. And so I got involved in the trades. I worked for a water company in Hamilton. I worked for a mill in Darby area. Then, needing a job, I moved to Billings in 1982, where I had a first class engineer's boilers license. So I was lucky. I learned how to do that because I got a job at the hospital. I did that for 7 years, and then I got a chance to be the maintenance manager at the hospital in Bozeman. I did that for 5 years, and then I had a chance to uh, get in a ground opportunity to a new business in West Yellowstone where they took liquid natural gas. They brought it in. It's cryogenic. Had a plant, warmed it up, turned it into natural gas, and I did that for 5 years. My wife was kind of not so happy there because there's only 2 seasons, winter and more winter. So she wanted to, seriously, she wanted to move back to Billings. So I started looking, and I ended up finding a position and accepted a position to work at Montana Dakota Utilities. And I had to start all over, had to do a journeyman apprenticeship and all that all over. But I did that for just about 19 years. I got hurt, so I had to retire. Since retirement, my wife and I, we went to the Navajo Nation where there's a lot of poverty. We got involved in just helping people, doing everything from building corrals for their sheep. And by the way, they're sheeps. If you have more than one, we did a lot of wood splitting. We did a lot of helping people. There's a lot of abuse, physical abuse there. A lot of women cried on my wife's shoulder. We tried to help people with alcoholism. We had some training in that. COVID sent us home. So when we got home, we did a faith-based addiction recovery group as facilitators. We did that for 2.5 years. So basically, since retirement, I figured I don't have a lot of things that I need to be um, concerned with because we've raised all our children. We have grandchildren here. We um, like to keep busy, both of us. My wife teaches some online classes in Africa. She's been doing that for several years. I just decided that I care about what's going on in Billings, kind of like Andrew does. I just really care. I'm just the common old work guy that made a living working with my hands, learning how to repair and fix. And I've been to most of the homes in the Heights, whether they know it or not. I hung a lot of gas meters in here. I've seen a lot of growth. I've been to a lot of different places. I've been in a lot of dangerous situations with the fire department here and the police department here with stuff that happens. There's a lot of stuff that happens that people don't know about. People are driving intoxicated and they run over their gas meters, and you have to safely get their car off of a gas meter without hurting anybody or themselves. And so there's a lot of those kind of calls. Every fire call we'd have to go on. So I had a very, very busy job. Only time I've ever been in politics at college, I was on a position with the Associated N students. So I got involved with that. I liked it. And I've always wanted to do something. Well, I figured now that I'm retired and I have all the time, to, like Andrew said, it's very important because I understand there's people on the city council now that they don't know what the agenda is. They don't study. They don't come prepared. And I think that's a shame because you're not being a very good steward of your district or the people that you represent. And I think that's real important to be able to spend that time. If you need to listen to somebody, you need to listen to somebody. If you need to do some research on things that you don't know about so you can make good decisions, I'm all about that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Did you have anything further that you wanted to say now that you've got the audience?
Well, we've always been those who step up. I've done a lot of stuff, and I've done a lot of things and had a lot of positions in different organizations like Boy Scouts. I was involved in Big Brothers, Big Sisters, um, some of those things when I have. But we've done a lot of service for people, and we don't really say, "Oh, we did this, we did that, we did this." But I have done some great projects. There was a poor lady in West Jellison having nickels together, and she was living in a drafty old cabin that wasn't really suitable to live in. So I got on board. They got her a loan for $12,000 because that's what it was going to take for some of the lumber, and a lot of things were donated. The gas company I worked for, they donated the gas piping, a water heater, and a furnace. I donated all my time to plumb all that, put the heaters in, put the water heaters in, do all the plumbing, and then some of the lighter construction. But we had a lot of community effort. And so I've been involved in, that was the biggest project I've ever done. But I've been involved in those kind of things my whole life, helping people out like that because I can. And that's kind of where my knowledge is in the trades and in utilities. But I'm not one to go around and say, yeah, I did all this because I just don't do that. But I did do a lot of projects similar to that. Just that was probably the most intense one I ever got involved in because it was basically building a whole new A-frame cabin for a lady.
Interesting. And when you worked for MDU, what was your position there?
I was a journeyman serviceman general. So I fixed furnaces, I put gas meters in, I went to blowing gas calls, I went to carbon monoxide calls, I went to I smell gas calls, I went to all those kind of things that a service guy would do.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, let's open it up to questions then. I guess since we don't have any hands up just yet, if you have a question, the easiest thing to do is to go down and get that little hand and make sure that hand gets up on your screen. But question first, we've always, well, everybody knows that we've got a problem with our funding. And at the present time, we have a, a charter that prevents us from getting more than a certain number of mills raised. And that was, of course, they had to have that limitation in order to get the charter passed. Now that's been what, 40 years or something like that, and we're running into problems with the state when the state changed the mill levy issues. We ended up in Billings with a problem that the state had to make a separate excuse for and overrode our charter. Do we need to change our charter? We'll go back and forth for questions and then make sure everybody gets the answer. Go ahead, Andrew. What's your thoughts?
You picked the easy question first. Good grief. Not really. I'm just joking. Here's what I would say. I mean, first of all, I don't know all the details about when the charter was created. Maybe some people on here know a little bit more about it, and I know it puts us in a tough position in the current state of affairs. I think it's important to make sure. I mean, first of all, to just acknowledge the fact that I don't know if the charter is the issue or if the way that the legislator has done things without really understanding the impact to cities like Billings is maybe the bigger issue. But I would say, let me start with the charter. So one potential option is update the charter, whether it's just that one particular section or maybe open up the entire charter for review. Personally, I'm a little cautious about a full charter review because that's where we could see things like people pushing for partisan elections, people pushing for a strong mayor system, which I don't think would be a good idea. And honestly, I think, the mill system is fairly complicated to the average citizen. I don't know if they fully understand it. So I feel like Billings right now to try to push for giving council the ability to raise mills, effectively raising taxes, is going to be a super hard sell. I think it would be very, very tough. There are other options that don't just involve cutting programs. I mean, we all know that Billings has so many hotels, many of them built in the last 5 to 10 years. And the reason for that is a lot of people come to Billings. They come to Billings for events at the Metro, for sporting events, for all sorts of things, which is great for our city. The businesses make a lot of revenue off of that. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a large number. But those people who come to Billings outside of the hotel tax don't contribute to the city. So, the ability that Montana, or the fact that Montana has the local option tax capped to only be available for cities with 5,500 residents or less, I think would be something I would certainly love to be able to at least consider, so that we could potentially, get some revenue from the large number of people that come here. And, I don't want to go into big depth here. I'm not saying 100% that's the right solution. I'm just saying I think it would be good to take a look at as an option. I saw someone had done a study across the whole state, county by county. If you did a 1% local option tax, what would the revenue be? And for Yellowstone County, it would be almost $50 million a year. I mean, that would, by large numbers, take care of any issues that we have from a city perspective. And of course, those of you probably on this call familiar with local option taxes, but you could adjust what's taxed. Like, don't tax groceries because that impacts families. Don't tax, kids' clothes, things like that. And the reason why I would say local option tax instead of maybe some people saying sales tax is because Billings keeps control of it. If we go with a statewide sales tax, I mean, look, we already are running into issues because the state's making decisions that aren't impacting us in a very good way. So anyway, that's one potential idea that I would throw out there that I'd be interested in. But again, that's going to take collaboration with state lawmakers, because they'd have to change state law to make that happen. So anyway, that's what I'd say about that, at least at the moment.
Okay, well, Ernie, we'll turn it over to you. What is your thoughts on that matter?
Well, I was looking for my copy of my city charter, so I didn't misspeak, but I know it came out in the later 70s, like 77 or 8. And if I'm wrong, don't hold me to it, but I was looking for it just to make sure. I know that the mill levy was capped at like 0.69 something mils. That's what I believe, and that's why I was looking to make sure I didn't misspeak. But here's my thought. Okay, I'm an old guy, and my taxes went up $900 on my house that I own and have worked hard to pay for. So I looked at that as, holy cow, that's a lot of money. I talked to the people down at the Yellowstone County Assessor's Office, and yes, they can reassess your house every odd year. And yes, they will. And the way property values and Billings are going up, it's going to happen, and my taxes are going to go up. So I'm worried, first of all, are we going to tax our elderly, myself included, out of their homes? That's my biggest fear. As far as raising a mill levy, we're done. I absolutely think we're done. When you look at yes, we needed the safety mill levies, but we haven't really seen a lot of results there. Everybody's kind of hoping that those results will be better now that we have a temporary holding facility to put people in. But I'm going to tell you that that is probably going to be full and be waiting lines as well. Yes, there's issues that the county and the state maybe need to do something more for the prison system so that we don't have so many people waiting to be in or be on ankle bracelets. I did a ride around with a police officer, and they knew this gal on a first name basis, and she'd been arrested 3 times, but she hadn't spent a day in jail yet. So just a little bit of holding. So they're hoping that last time they arrested her, and it's for domestic violence stuff, that they're hoping maybe she could stay a little longer. So I think for some of these things are going to be resolved. But the tax issue, I really think that people are taxed out. They're maxed out. There's a lot of concern there with, there's some transparency issue. I've tried to ask how much money is this and how much money is that. It's like, well, I really don't need to know. But yet I see a lot of things that are kind of stupid that happen, especially being involved in some of the meetings I go to. And I don't understand why we do surveys, and they won't tell you how much these surveys cost. And yes, that CPS M1 that they did for the police department was probably a good survey, but it was 2 years old when we got it. And yeah, we know our crime rate was high. And same way with the housing, we know our housing is high. And they did all this comparison, and it always seems to amaze me, or never seems to amaze me, that they always include in those studies Pueblo, Colorado, which has got the worst crime, the worst everything in the whole nation. And why do we have to compare ourselves to that? They want to compare ourselves to Bozeman. They want to do this. They want to do that. So I think, for my 2 cents in here, is we're going to keep budgets tight. We need to hold our city administrator accountable for those budgets, and we don't really need to be paying for surveys. We have money put in stuff that just makes me upset. And then I talked to a fireman that I know, told me that one of the firehouses, this is a couple months ago, I don't know if they fixed it, but the ceiling tiles were falling in, and the roof needed $25,000 to repair, but yet there wasn't any money to fix it. And I go, well, they spend money on all this other stuff. How come they're not keeping our fire guys dry? So in my mind, we really need to look at the budget. They need to go on a diet or tighten their belt or whatever you want to call, and see what we don't need to be spending money on before we say, okay, we're always out of money. We want more money. We're not going to get more money, because I believe that another mill levy or any of those other TIF things, any of those things that are wanting to expand, I don't believe the public's going to say yes for, because everybody I talk to is in that same situation as me, is like, wow, we're already paying all this money, and we're to the point to say, uncle, there's no more money. So we need to do with what we have. That's my thought.
Okay, let's go on to the questions then. Carol has her hand up first.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just was at a meeting the other day, yesterday, on a citizen climate group that has been doing stuff all over town. And in the part of that meeting was how Billings has really stepped up and did the improvements we need to do to get ourselves more ecologically friendly, and how much some revenues come in from that, and how the first thing he says, and nobody knows what was done, you know, and city council is involved in that, and other agencies in town, and that seems to be a real crux of our problem in the city, is we really don't know what's going on in the city. So that's one of the things I like to see. Anybody have an idea to really focus on, and what's your vision, I guess, for the future of building a better relationship between the city and the people? Because, like Ernie said, people are really mistrustful of government and the city, and they really shouldn't be, because I'm kind of amazed at what some things were done, and we've got a lot of good stuff coming up, and there's also a time when the city people who really might have a passion for some of this could maybe step up and help out, and volunteer or whatever, and be part of this improvement, and make themselves feel like they're a member of the city, and they have invested their time in whatever with it. Okay.
Okay, we'll go to Ernie first, and then we'll go back and forth. So Ernie, it's your turn.
Okay, well, first of all, she's right. There's some transparency issues. A lot of cities will put their budgets right in the paper. They spend this on police, this on fire. I still don't know what the budgets are. They don't want to tell you. I think there's a lot of that, like she says, transparency issues. There is a lot of good things in Billings. There's some things that we could do. Working for MDU, a lot of people didn't even know that MDU put all those wells up at the city landfill, and they're harvesting that methane. Very clean energy project. They get energy credits for it. Yes, it does cost more money to take gas out of the dump, but it's going nowhere anyway. I tried to reach out to the people who run the wastewater treatment. They won't even call me back. And the one guy's phone number just sends it to voice messages, and it's full, so you can't leave him a message. Because I've seen where people have done some capture of methane at their wastewater facilities. I'm not sure how economical that is, but yet it's green energy. I also agree with her in the fact that if people were called to stand up, like the people that are doing, I've been involved in the Heights Task Force, and boy, you really see a lot of things. You see the they're open with how many calls the police get. You can follow the police. You see what's going on. If there's things you have solutions to, you can talk back and forth. I've seen some things done there. I'd like to see more people get involved in that. I also think we could do volunteer boards for our public works. There's a lot of things that need to change in that public work, especially with the water department. But I also think, like Two Men Park has a cleanup coming up here again in a few weeks. I'm going to participate. That's my favorite place to go when I had a dog, and so I love that park. But I do think if we had people that would step up and do a board for free that were interested and could help and make decisions and take ownership and plan volunteer efforts. I mean, when I was doing scouts, we cleaned up that park that people don't even know is there. It's that little strip of land on Bull Avenue, just down from Castle Rock. We took both times we cleaned it up. We took 2 big dumpsters of stuff, all just because we were doing it for scouts and we were trying to be in the community to serve. And so we have a lot of people that would step up if we could figure out ways to make opportunities to have these boards. They're talking about an airport authority, which I guess is going to happen. They're going to pay a lot of money to do that survey. And I'm not sure why it's going to be so much money. It's like $750,000. But I reached out to 3 different cities to find out answers on how they do stuff. And one of the airport authorities are all appointed. They don't get any pay. They feed them lunch, and they can discuss things and make decisions. And then they're also the airport administrator is responsible to them. So I see things like that she was talking about we could do, and we could get community involved. And yes, when you're involved in the community, you really do feel a part of the community because you're not only helping others, you're helping our community grow.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, I think this is a great point and question, Carol. Knocking on doors, especially, lots of people, even if they knew an election was coming up, they just don't know much about council, who's on council, how often they meet. Certainly don't know what's being talked about. I just think it's very difficult for the average citizen to really be engaged. Um, the city of Billings has published, and you can go right now to their website and you can look up old agendas and minutes and links to the videos. But I mean, if you pull up those minutes, I would just say that for the average citizen, that's who we really need to be thinking about here. They can't easily digest what those minutes say. What are the topics? What's the impact, et cetera. So I think that, I would say first and foremost, in today's day and age, and my background is in technology, that just shouldn't be that way. So during the campaign, actually, I was kind of curious what would be possible. And so I've been working on a little side project to load all of the meeting minutes and agendas into basically an engine that would provide AI summaries of kind of what happened at the meeting, much easier to read and digest. I think we got to look at things like that. We need to meet people where they're at. We have task forces all over town. The Heights one that Earnie mentioned. Uh, there's a Rimrock task force. I mean, they're all over town. Southside task force. And a lot of people go to those meetings. I say a lot of people, a small percentage of the constituents in those areas go to those meetings. And it's great for people who can make it there, but a lot of people can't. Maybe they just aren't able bodied or it's tough to get somewhere. And certainly as it gets colder. So I think even in those, providing, help and guidance on how can those task forces, communicate what's going on in those areas in an easier to digest way, not just one way. I mean, if people want to go physically to the meeting, great. Put it on a website, awesome. Publish things on social media and make it easier to get to that way. I think we just have to really try to take the approach where we need to try to meet every community member where they're at so that they can really see what's going on. And I mean, I candidly throughout the campaign, it's been a little one interesting thing that hits that point home for me is how many times I've seen candidates that are running for the various offices across the city go to campaign events and talk about their support for a particular item, that matters to voters. When I know that if the voters actually could easily go see what that person has voted for over the last 4 years, they would understand that they don't support what they're talking about. So, we don't currently have accountability like I think we should from a city council perspective. And beyond accountability, Carol, you said it right. There's a lot of amazing things going on inside of Billings. And we really need to make sure people can see that and understand it as we make progress, because otherwise we just kind of get, it's so easy for all of us to get stuck in that negative cycle of just thinking that everything is not good. And I think there's a lot of great things going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
one thing I didn't mention was that we got national attention, getting standing in like an upper 10% of people doing what is going on all over the nation, and we're kind of a leader in a lot of different things, and we've devised certain ways of taking a problem and doing it, and they became epitome for the people who are trying to do that to try to emulate that.
Okay, we're going to go to the next question. Patricia, you're still muted.
Okay, I unmuted it. Well, about this last point that you're making, what I think you really need to have at City Council is a secretary who can jot down everything that happens in meetings and then dumb it down for your average citizen, because frankly, I'm reasonably intelligent, but I just don't have time to to follow and understand all these highly technical terms that you guys throw around that have, tax increment financing, all this stuff. Like when Jennifer Owen came on, she got really, really technical, super technical. And how are we supposed, anyway, you need somebody to record the minutes in the meeting and to dumb it down and to provide definitions for any of these acronyms. I'm just telling you, you really got to do that. Okay, number two is, you know, we go on and on about how bad crime is in Billings, and we're throwing all kinds of money at it, and everybody talks about it, and everybody runs on it. But lo and behold, we got bars and casinos on every block. What really needs to happen is we need to change the culture here in Billings, because bars and casinos mean domestic violence, it means assault, it means DUIs, it means you know uh bankruptcies, thefts. I know this is Montana pride that we're big honcho men, that we can drink our buddies under the table and we always win at poker, but really we need to change this whole scene. I used to live in Seattle, and they don't have those kind of problems there. Andrew, I see that you've been around, and guys like you living out there in Ironwood, you need to come up with some ideas for businesses besides coffee shops, casinos, and bars, and selling ankle bracelets. I'm just telling you, man, you guys aren't going to get anywhere. You can throw $5 billion on this problem, but if you just got a culture that glorifies drunkenness and gambling, you're not going to get anywhere at all. This needs to change. And number two, about the property taxes, which is a huge um, um, conversation point. I can see why senior citizens complain that their property taxes have doubled or whatever in the past 2 years. But keep in mind, I'm a renter. If your house value, your house goes from 200 to $400,000, or from 500,000 to 1.1 million, I believe that you need to pay taxes on that exact amount. And all these people with their in Ironwood complaining about, oh, my house, I'm paying what, $9,000 in property tax. What they fail to mention is that their house is worth 1.5 million now, and it's not fair to the low income renters. I live near North Park and I see homeless people walking by here all day long. Little old ladies with stunned looks on their faces. And I'm sorry if I'm getting harsh with you all, but I want to represent the 2/3 of Billings with that doesn't know how they're going to feed their family next month. And I know that I'm getting ugly and harsh with you, but yeah, I want to see partisan elections in city council because Andrew, I can see you're very well spoken, very intelligent, and I too used to work at Microsoft, believe it or not. And I'm down here on Skid Row because of domestic violence, but I need to know where people are coming from, and if they're all living, diehard Republicans trying to put on a smiley face and say that they're going to stand up for people like me. Um, I just think we're being deceived. So there you go.
Okay, I think it's Andrew's turn to start.
Well, let me address a couple of things that you talked about there. I think I can kind of see, I can see where you're coming from, I think, Patricia. So let me see if I can kind of cover some of those things. First of all, let me say this. I don't live in Ironwood. I don't live in $1 million house. And to be honest with you, as I've knocked on 1,800 doors around Ward 4, the majority of Ward 4 doesn't live in Ironwood. It's a small, small, small percentage of Billings residents that live in places like that. And the people that I've talked to that have the biggest concerns about property taxes aren't the people in Ironwood. It's people who are retired, living on Social Security, who have a fixed income and paid their home off. I mean, to Ernie's point, paid their home off, and now they see their fixed income all of a sudden hit by some really terrible number. Um, Now, property tax is the one thing that also, just to make sure, and I think most people here probably know this, the property tax whiplash that we've had in the last couple of years has come from the state legislature, not from city council. City council hasn't had anything to do with what happened. That the governor made a terrible decision to not do what governors in the past have done, which is to kind of hold back on what those property tax increases were going to be. So, I mean, I think it's criminal what's happened to property taxes in the state. It's not been a good thing. I agree with you that we need to have people that will invest in businesses that are good for the community, right? Whether it's families or just in general in the community. And I would say that I think we do have those. I mean, we have a lot of that around Billings. I know the bars and casinos are certainly can be frustrating. I've thought that since I was a young kid growing up. I mean, I thought there was a lot of casinos back in the 80s. Good grief, there's probably 5 times as many now, I'm sure of it. So yeah, I think that that's important. And when you said, speaking common language and making sure that it's easy to understand what's going on, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think, you mentioned TIF. TIF is a complicated, when you talk about it in the technical terms, it's complicated. When you talk about it in more simple terms, I think it's pretty easy. We say, look, we can pick an area in town like downtown and say we want to see some good positive development that would help the city, which would build community, like you said, Patricia. And so let's take that area and say, look, from this point we're going to draw a line in the sand. As property taxes go up, any increase goes into a bucket, and we're going to spend the money out of that bucket based on what we think would help the community. And so in the downtown area, that's how we refurbished the Alberta Bear Theater. That's how we really helped Art House Cinema do what they did. That's how, I mean, numerous projects around the downtown area. We have a South Side district, which makes sense to me. We have one that's between downtown and the Metro, which I think also makes sense. There's so much industrial that just really needs to be something done with it. And candidly, I think there should also be something done in the Heights, if we could figure it out. I mean, as a kid who grew up in the Heights, I think that the Heights is a really great place. There's a lot of people that live there, and there are some good businesses that are starting up there, but it's kind of tough. So anyway, I mean, thanks for your comments, Patricia. I take them to heart. I truly do. And I think that's, what you're saying just really reinforces why it's so important for the council to be in tune with what's going on in the city and listen to people.
Okay, Ernie?
Well, he's right on a few points. One of the points is the city council can't change what Gianforte does or anybody in Helena does. We can control the city administrator, and that's it. We have to make him accountable. We have to look at what monies are spent, and we have to make good decisions. We can't decide to put on a franchise fee and get sued for $3.6 million and get the ratepayers to pay for it. It's dumb. We're going to have another lawsuit. There's this, go to the web and look, there's a Let's Sue Billings campaign going on all over the city. These people are unhappy with mistrust they have with the water department over their water bills. We can't afford that. We're suing ourselves. We're taking money away from things that really would matter because we're getting sued because of stupid decisions. That's the big problem. Now, as far as TIF money, I agree with Andrew for downtown. We've had to have that. Otherwise, downtown would not have the success it has because they need the money. They needed those monies to do some of those projects. Some of those projects I think have been pretty low, and I wouldn't have voted for some of them, but most of them have been good. As far as the Heights goes, I've been in the Heights most of my adult life. So, therefore, I have seen, and if you've lived in the Heights, you've seen all these businesses that have been torn down and rebuilt. You've seen apartment places like the one next to Albertson torn down. Now there's a Chipotle in there. It was a Hardee's to start with, but those places that were dilapidated have been torn down. We've seen a couple of buildings torn down and a new dentist office made on Wicks. We've seen all kinds of growth from people who invest in the Heights to make nicer buildings, banks, everything that they have that's new here. And I don't think we need to have TIF money so that a certain person I know can go ahead and change their storefronts because he doesn't have the money to do it, because there is people who have successful businesses and they're investing in the Heights. And I don't see it as being the same kind of needs that we had downtown. So I strongly disagree that we need to do any other districts at this time other than the three that we already have. Now, I do know what it's like to be on a fixed income, even though right now I do have a little part-time job. I see a lot of older people who are older than me working at the Walmart down here in the Heights. And I'm going, holy cow, shouldn't you be off retired? Well, they can't afford to retire because everything in the whole economy went to heck in a handbasket, and everything costs so much more, including their taxes and groceries and everything. So we are really, like she says, she's right. We are hitting the senior citizens really hard with this. And for somebody who has worked for, like me, 50 years of your life and realized that I can't have some of those freedoms that I thought I was going to have with retirement. Now, I did okay. I'm not complaining because like some seniors, I have a pension, which some seniors don't. I really invested heavily in 401ks, and some seniors haven't. And I'm not blaming them for whatever their financial situations are. But if you only have Social Security alone to live on, it's tough. You have to have something else. I know this because most of my friends are my age, and they all say the same thing. It's tough to live on Social Security, and you can't do it unless you have either some way to make a little extra money, or if you have a pension, or you have something else going on. Then it's not so bad. But still, I don't want to see my property tax go up any higher because it hurts.
Okay, so let's go to Kathy Roberts.
Thank you. I have one quick question, and then for Ernie, and then a question for both of you. Ernie, you mentioned that your opponent is Dennis Pittman. Are you also running against Cassie Strong?
There's three of us. Yes, there's Cassie Strong, Dennis, and me. We're the only race in town that has three. Everybody else's race, I believe, only has two. Well,
Okay.
there are four mayors too, but I mean, as far as council goes, there's three of us. So I think it's going to be an interesting situation, not only for my race, because I see a strong three-way split from people I talk to, and I also,
Yeah.
even though there's four mayor candidates, I see a strong three-way split with those two. So Um, let's all go to the fair and hang on to the roller coaster. Let's see what happens when November 5th comes along and all these votes come in, because I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So voting is going to be important, because I see some strong issues and some things that we could get people to get some things done that Billings needs to happen. So it is important to get your friends, people to vote, because those issues, even though we're not at the national level, it sets the tone for the flavor of Billings,
Okay,
and that's what we're concerned about.
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I I want to piggyback onto that property tax issue. Ernie, you said you went to the county and asked about your increase. And I guess I'm of the opinion that if a tax is for a local um, benefit, that we see it in our daily life. And if it goes beyond the local to the state or the feds, we don't necessarily see it. Um, that's my opinion. So, as a constituent, I'd like to throw that out there. But I'd kind of like to know if either one of the candidates that we have here looked into those property tax increases to see what was local. You know, I actually went back like 20 years on my on the Yellowstone County website to see what the increases in my property taxes. And it really, I mean, they've gone up a little bit year to year, but man, the last couple years or 3 years or something, it has gone up. It has taken big jumps. And I'd like to know, either one of you, do you know if the local um, benefits have been there?
Well, if you look at your tax bill, or sorry, my
Go ahead. Go
okay,
ahead.
if you look at your tax statement, okay, it's a little more clearer than it used to be. It used to just be a pie chart. Well, now they've got it. The state made them change it, which I'm glad they did. You can look and see some things. You can look and see what the safety levy mill is, and what you're paying for both the 2020 and the 2021 mill levies. It's actually in dollars and cents. It'll all show you show you what the library gets. It'll show you some of the county stuff, which county stuff, and it'll show you what the school district you're in. It shows you those things, so you get those numbers. But there's also things that you don't really know what it goes to, because it just says general fund. Now, what I know of the general fund is general fund. That's where all the ticket money goes through, and that's where all the reserve money goes to in case we have some kind of a problem where we can't deal with it or we didn't budget correctly. Which some things, um, some things you have to realize they can't really go $0 budgeting, because let's say, for example, I did talk to the guy who runs the road works, and it costs him 43 grand for a 24-hour period to plow our streets. Police streets need to plow. Well, if we have a nasty winter, it sure messes the budget up. If we have a mild winter, it doesn't mess up the budget so much. So there's some things that a taxpayer has to rely on people at the city administration level to make those decisions on where that money goes. So as far as we go, all we can see is our tax dollars went here. Some of it's into outer space somewhere. You don't really know what it does, but a lot of it does show you exactly how many dollars and cents you spent for certain things if you look at your itemized bill.
Okay, shall we go on then to Andrew on that question? If you have something further, we'll talk about that later, but go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
I did the switcheroo between my phone to my computer. So anyway.
Yeah, we see more of your area.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, this is a good question, Kathy, and I agree. I think it's important. I mean, it goes back to the point made earlier about, or multiple people made, that it's hard to understand how all this stuff works. Give or take, I mean, my understanding from looking into it, give or take 50% of our property taxes go to schools. It's only about 11% that come back to the city. And so if you take a look at the city's revenue, you know, it's a small percentage of it that's coming from those property taxes. And then a lot of it's, well, even when it comes to schools, some of it gets sucked up to the state and then distributed back out, as some of you probably know. So it's, it is complicated, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I know that with our property taxes, and I mean, anybody I talk to described the same thing you just said. Property tax is kind of going up in general, which you'd expect over time as property values go up, but then just this massive increase a few years ago. And then the change that recently happened this legislative session, I don't completely disagree with it, where they changed it so that if you own a second home, like a vacation property, that's not your primary residence in Montana, you'll pay higher property taxes on that. I actually agree with that. I think probably most people in Montana would. And that your primary residence would go down a little bit. But some of those reductions are getting distributed out through those rebate checks, which are not necessarily easy for people to understand or fill out. And I mean, I'm pretty confident, I don't know this, but I'm taking an educated guess that not everybody who is due a rebate check is going to file for a rebate check. I mean, I'm very confident in that. That's just the how everything works. So, yeah, I think the local property taxes, I don't think enough. It's a small percentage. I do think it would be nice if more came back to local, to really support what matters, what's impacting people day to day, whether it's taking care of city infrastructure or anything else that really is going to impact residents.
Okay, do you have something further, Kathy, or should we go on? We got one more person.
No, that's it. I'll lower my hand.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yes, just for your information, Cascade County has on their website a really extensive breakdown of almost every penny that the county spends, that goes into your property taxes. And it's really, really pretty good. I mean, you can click on this and that, and you can do a several page printout. So that's you might look into that. Um, my question is about the new mental health facility that the state is considering building somewhere in Yellowstone County. Maybe Billings, maybe Laurel, or maybe somewhere else. But do you support that, or do you see that as something that's good for our city to have, or how do you feel about it?
We'll go to Andrew first, and then Ernie.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Ruth. I mean, first of all, let me start by saying that I think it's clear to me, and I think anybody who works in the mental health profession, that Montana needs a new state hospital. I mean, let's start there. And if we do need a new state hospital, it to me would make sense that it's closer to the largest city in the state. Secondly, and the third thing I would say is that I think any sort of anything like that would be really great for Billings to have from an economic perspective. I mean, it means more providers that would move here. I think it would be really good. A lot of the negative sentiment about that coming here seems to be two things. One is what appears to be some poor coordination and communication from the state level about how the whole selection process is working and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I can understand that, but I think that's something we could all work through and figure out a good solution for. And the second thing, which is the more concerning one to me, is that a lot of people that I hear from that are against, just wholeheartedly against it, it just goes back to, people having this idea that people who might need help from a state hospital are dangerous to the community, which I just think is, I mean, it's patently false. It's not true. And I think it just continues the stigma about mental health services that I think we need to kind of break through. So I think it would be good for the city of Billings to have something like that so close, for the people that need it, and also for the economic development and getting more providers here. So I would be very supportive of it.
Okay, Ernie.
Me, I'm not so much supportive of it. And here's well, first I'm going to say I understand mental illness. I really do. I had a son as a teenager dealt with depression and he committed suicide. So yes, I understand mental illness. And we don't have enough mental illness resources. But there's some transparency things here. And if you want to read my response in the Yellowstone County newspaper that's going to come out tomorrow, I'll kind of repeat that. I see issues. First of all, location. Nobody wants it up by Skyview, somewhere by the dog park up there. Nobody wants that location. Okay, there's a safety issue of. I understand that some of these people are going to be felons and going to be to a danger to themselves and others. And what happens if one of them escapes, or will we be able to make the um, facility safe enough for people to work there? Yes, we do need jobs, but I did some research. Do you know that the state pays at Warm Springs a registered nurse $43, I think, whatever I quoted in the paper is correct. It's $43 something an hour. Plus, there's a $7,500 sign-on bonus. Now, Billings Clinic has got in their psych ward a position that pays up to 57 something an hour with a $20,000 sign-in bonus. Now, if you look on the search I did, Indeed shows there's 500 nursing jobs, and I don't know if they're all RNs, probably not, probably CSAs and LPNs. There's 500 nursing jobs available in Montana right now. So, how are we going to staff this thing when there's a nursing shortage, and if the state's not going to pay the same as Bozeman Deaconess or the Billings Clinic or St. Vincent Hospital or Intermountain Health? It's still St. Vincent's because it's how I worked there. It's still St. Vincent's to me. But how are they going to staff this if they can't cough up the money that's going to attract people to work there? So that's kind of an issue. The other issue I want to know is what's going to be their long term commitment. What happens if, for some reason, Yellowstone County gets stuck with this? So I put on right at the end of my thing as well. Hardin's expressed interest. So has Laurel. Let them have it. And then I also understood that now Columbus has expressed interest. So um, I just don't think there's enough information to really support what's going on because nobody knows exactly what they want to do. It's just like, we're just going to do this and we're going to put it wherever we want and we'll see what happens from there. That's kind of the take I get it. So at this point in time, I'm not going to support it because the information I want to know that matters to me if is not there.
Okay, well, let me go. I think we ought to touch on real quickly a couple of issues. The most important thing that a city council does is appoint a city manager. And from that point, the city manager is in charge. Do we have a good city manager? Yes or no? Earnie, your turn first.
I really don't know, but I think somebody needs to take the blame for all these problems the water department's had and some of these other problems and the spending issue. So I would tell you, honestly, I would have supported the council member that voted, all the council members who voted against giving him a raise. Yes, $541 raise is probably not a lot to some people, but to me, it would be a great raise. And I don't think with the accountability issue I talked about is there, the transparency issues about what he's doing is not there. And I also think that somebody needs to be responsible, and that is the only person that the council has control over. So I'm not going to say, yeah, day one we should fire the guy. I want to say, if I get more information and I see incompetencies here and I see things I don't like, maybe that's something that the city council down the road needs to consider. Do we have a person who has the best interest of Billington at heart and trying to manage the money that he's responsible for? Because he is the only one that we can have accountable to us. And I would think if you were in that hot seat of you're the manager, even if I was the manager and I said, okay, I'm going to have to be more responsible to where all this money goes, I'm going to also hold my other subordinates accountable as well. So that's the issue. Because I don't work in the city council and I don't really know much about how he is and what he does and how he spends money, it's going to be an issue. I think it's going to be an issue to hold him accountable. And if he can't cut the grade, then let's get us a new one. That's the way I feel.
Okay, Andrew?
Sorry, there, had to unmute. Yeah, I think so. I think Chris is a good city administrator. There are some issues that I have had questions about. The water issue is top of the list. Working in corporate America like I have for so long, we have something called change management, which means you just are extraordinarily cautious about making big changes that impact systems or people. And I think some of the decisions made there on that water project of changing computer software didn't take that into account. We were changing a system at the heaviest time of the year, and also in coinciding with a rate increase. So I just think that was there was a mistake made there. But what I would say is that, look, I make mistakes. I think we all do. So I don't think somebody making an individual mistake is necessarily means that they should be fired. But I do think they should be held accountable. The one thing I would say about Chris, though, is that, as we all know, he's looking for another job. He applied for a job in Michigan, and I don't know the reasons why. He's from Michigan. Whether he just wants to move home. I moved home to Montana after living in the Pacific Northwest for a while. Or if it's because he feels like working under the current council is just toxic, or a combination of the two. So I know that the council hires and fires the city administrator. I know that we need to have accountability for sure. But at the same time, we need to have a good working relationship. And it's important that the council knows that the only employee they have is the city administrator.
That's right.
Council doesn't have any right to go to other department managers and get involved in day-to-day items. They can ask questions for sure. And as a council member, I'd want to meet people and just kind of understand what's going on. But to try to manage them, that's just adding confusion to it. So I think it's putting Chris and anybody else that comes into that position in a very, very tough spot. So I think council needs to kind of get back to where they belong, which is hiring and firing and directing the city administrator and holding them accountable.
So Chris has made it very clear that the reason he applied was that it was back home, and he wasn't looking for a place otherwise, just someplace back home. And if none, he stays here. Anyway, question number 2, real quickly. Do you support a non-discrimination ordinance? Andrew, I think it's your turn first.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. In the list of things that made me want to run for city council, it was very high on my list. My wife and I have a son who came out to us when he was 5 years old, and we have many other people in the community that we've seen that without a non-discrimination ordinance, there is unquestionably discrimination happening in Billings. I believe it would not hurt anyone to have a non-discrimination ordinance, but it would certainly help a lot of people. So I wholeheartedly would support it.
Earnie?
I agree 100%.
Good for you. Okay, well, there are a lot of questions we could add, but we're 15 minutes over time already. And it's been a really good, I think, discussion. We thank you both for coming out this morning and talking about your particular situation. Andrew and Ernie, thank you so much, and good luck to both of you. Okay.
Okay, for this, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.